I think that this is often a pretty good indicator of success, at least to an extent. The NFL draft, right? When you look at how much NFL talent a team has, the teams with a lot of it are the ones that win national championships. LSU's of the world, the Alabamas of the world, the Ohio States of the world. I know it's been 10 years, but the Ohio States, the Michigans, and the Georgias of the world who dominate the NFL draft. They're putting out a ton of guys. They're putting out a ton of guys in the early rounds. You rewind to last year, and Georgia had a lot of guys. You look ahead at next year, think Georgia's going to have a lot of guys drafted again. Well, they're in contention for championships, and it's because of a lot of stuff, and we go over and over and over, and what do I always say? You got to have the players first. If you don't have really good players, you're just not going to win championships, especially in college where there are talent gaps. You see the talent gaps, and they work well for teams like Georgia. Well, they might have the number one pick next year. That number one pick a couple years ago when Trayvon Walker got drafted number one overall to the Jaguars, the Jacksonville Jaguars, in the 22 NFL draft. And now, the 2022 NFL draft. I almost got that wrong. You look ahead at next year, a lot of people have given their predictions, and there seems to be a pretty close to consensus number one overall pick. Maybe not the number one overall prospect, but number one overall pick, and that is Georgia's Carson Beck. Matt Miller of ESPN is the most recent draft. Look, one of my dream jobs, honestly, to do this draft stuff, but Matt Miller doing it for ESPN. He's got the Giants taking Carson Beck number one. It's very common to see the Giants take them. You can't predict the board quite yet. There's a good semblance, and yes, some of these names that are in the top 10 will end up being top 10 picks because not all of them are not going to live up to the expectation that they have a year from now, but not everybody's going to. I see a name like Luther Burden over and over in the top 10, and I think, yeah, that's a wide receiver that's really talented. That's a wide receiver that could be the first one off the board in a future NFL draft. But Georgia's going to have, I think, at least 3 guys taken in round 1 of next year. Probably the 3 I'm going to talk about off of Matt Miller's mock draft, and that's Carson Beck, Michel Williams, and Malachi Starks. Those are the 3 that I feel pretty comfortable saying first-round picks. First-round picks, top 30 picks, top 20 picks, right? I don't think that it's necessarily just top 30. I think all 3 of those guys can go in the top 20 of next year's draft. I think there's a few other names, guys like Ernest Green. We'll talk about that. And, what is the path to them actually becoming a first-round pick as opposed to what's going on? Again, these are projections. There are projections up until, like a couple weeks ahead of time when you're starting to get a little bit more certain of roughly where people are going to get taken. We've got a whole season to go under. I've watched some videos today, some, not real experts, but some breakdowns on Carson Beck, and it reminded me of a few things and some of the things I think that he's really, really good at. He needs to get better at. Things that will help him and hurt him in becoming the number one pick, right? Because there's a lot of people that had the opinion that he would have been drafted pretty highly in this most recent draft. And I think if he did go through the process, he would have been competing with J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix for sure in getting that first-round buzz. And hey, 5 quarterbacks went by pick 13. Pick 14, where did Bowers go? Because there were 5 quarterbacks taken before Brock Bowers. And I understand a few of them, and I understand it in general. But like I said, we live in a world where Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy went in the NFL draft out of Brock Bowers. We'll see. We'll see how it works. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post talking about the 25 NFL draft. We'll get to what Matt Miller of ESPN had to say here in a second. What I have to say for you is thank you. Thanks for your support, and thank you for signing up for the newsletter. Thank you for checking out EcoPoly. Thank you for checking out the Red Zone. I just want to give a bunch of shout-outs. Feeling thankful on this 4th of July weekend for the things that we do have, and I think we should be thankful here at Dawg Post. Let's go ahead. I don't think I can show you. I'm going to read real quick, very quick analysis about Carson Beck, and it's more about the Giants. And the problem here, I do have to say this, one of the biggest problems with these year ahead of time mock drafts is people are trying to project what the teams are going to need, and we don't actually know that part. All right, so you'll bear with me here. Let's just real quick. This is what Matt Miller said about the Giants and Carson Beck. projecting they'll have the number 1 pick, which, I don't know. We'll see. The Giants threw 15 touchdown passes last season, 5th fewest in the league, and Daniel Jones is coming off of a season-ending ACL injury, but the team is running it back this year. Veteran Drew Lock was added as a backup, but there still isn't a long-term answer under center on this roster, so the front office might get aggressive in finding one. Beck, my QB1 in the class at the moment, is a steady pocket passer with a big arm and great processing speed, and he is primed for a breakout season after throwing 24 touchdown passes and completing 72% of his throws in his first season as a starter in 2023. So some things we definitely knew there. But the part that I want to highlight, my consensus, or my QB1 in the class at the moment, like I said, that's the consensus. I think that most people have Carson as the QB1. So now the expectation is a breakout year. And you do have to wonder, what is the breakout expectation for Carson Beck from a lot of people? I've wondered it for myself, actually, because I am under the impression that he's going to be better in 2024, and I think that Georgia's team may end up just constructed better overall, even when you lose generational talents. Well, for Carson, I think statistically it's not quite as important as the eye test and the turnovers. Can't throw a lot of interceptions, which he doesn't do. He can't regress. If Carson regresses statistically, that'd be a problem, but I don't think he has to have like 4,500 passing yards, 5,000 passing yards necessarily for people to be like, oh yes, this is our number 1 pick. This is our next Caleb Williams and all that. I don't think it has to be like that. I think he just needs to look better. And numbers-wise, people will care about that. Did he dip from 72% completion percentage? Well, why did he dip? And then you got to look at what they have to deal with this year, because it's going to be more challenging than what it was years past. Let's move on. Michel Williams. I talked a lot about Carson Beck in that. It's easy to talk about quarterbacks. It's easy to talk about number 1 picks. This guy, Matt Miller's got Michel Williams going number... Oh, I might have passed it. He might have him higher than I remember. I've completely lost Michel Williams on here. 17 to the Bears, which would make sense, actually. A pass rusher would help out the Chicago Bears, who has invested a lot into its offense over the last 2 years. Real quick, this is what he said. General Manager Ryan Poles has done a masterful job of rebuilding the roster in Chicago, but the defensive line could use someone such as Williams. I just said that. I actually hadn't read this yet. The 6'5", 265-pound junior has experience playing both inside and outside alignments, but his future is off the edge in the pros. His 9 sacks in 2 seasons of rotational work point to the impact he can make with full-time reps in 2024. Williams' a combination of power and sudden first step could get him drafted in the top 10. Here's what's going to get him drafted in the top 10. Sacks and eye test. When you watch Michel Williams play, you see the super long arms. You see the guy that can get around the edge fast, a guy who's 6'5" and 260 pounds. That's part of what got Trayvon Walker to become the number 1 pick. And Trayvon Walker is starting to play a little bit better than he did his rookie season. He played better in year 2. So if Michel Williams has a Trayvon Walker season, which guess what? He already has twice. He's already done that twice. I mean, this is a guy that's off the physical talents alone is, to me, close to being a lock for a first-round pick. I'd be pretty surprised if Michel Williams does not become that next year. And you think about it, I think about the other edge rushers in this draft class. Well, Harold Perkins, one of the biggest names, going back to middle linebacker. James Pierce Jr., edge for the edge for Tennessee. I just looked down and saw that the Titans might be someone that's drafted him, is another guy. But there really aren't that many who I think are ahead of him in this class, and that's going to help him out a lot. Who are the highest paid guys in football? Quarterbacks, receivers, edge rushers, and tackles. That's where the money's at, guys. That's where the money's at. Malachi Starks. My journey of being aware of Malachi Starks goes back to 2020. his junior year of high school when I first went up to Jefferson to watch him play, and immediately he just was the best football player on the field. It didn't matter what the position was, and those kind of guys are usually pretty successful. He was faster, he was quicker, he was smarter, he was just more athletic than everybody. This guy's got Malachi Starks going number 28 to the Eagles. Not, like I said, not as important about where, but just the fact that he thinks he'd be a top 28 pick. Safeties, it just kind of depends on the class. Like, you'll see classes where one goes in the top 10, like a Jamal Adams, and then you'll see where the best one falls, like Kyle Hamilton did a year ago. And speaking of Kyle Hamilton, Matt Miller kind of compared him. He's not like Kyle Hamilton because he's not 6'4" and as long, but impact on 3 downs, yes, Malachi Starks is a guy that flies up and run stop and can make fancier interceptions than Connor. This is what he said. He was a consensus first-team All-American in 2023 after grabbing 3 picks and making 52 tackles. And Starks is a do-it-all safety with his experience playing press coverage in the slot. You're going to hear comparisons to Kyle Hamilton, and they're warranted given his 3-down impact. Malachi Starks doesn't need this crazy, like I said with Michel and these guys, they don't need a crazy statistical season to go in the first round a year from now. Because Malachi's going to test really well in that combine after he's put out 3 years of good tape and championship tape. He's going to run in the 4.3s, he's going to jump really high, and he's going to have all sorts of highlight plays on his tape. And he's got returner potential. He's got offensive potential if you needed him to. He can play safety. He can play slot corner. He could play receiver if you really wanted him to. He's going to end up being a first-round pick. I think other guys who have potential, like I said, Ernest Green, you think about on the defense, if you have a lockdown corner season, Dalen Everett, Julian Humphrey, it can happen. I'm not predicting that they make that sort of jump, but it is possible. Smile Munden, I've mentioned over and over, I believe he has the chance. It's going to be tough. He's going to have a big year in addition to testing really hard at the combine. But I do think he's a top 3-round pick, in my opinion. And then if Nazir Stackhouse or Warren Brinson really steps forward and fills the impact that they lost with losing Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis over the last couple of years and Devontae Wyatt, then you'll see that stock skyrocket, right? It's part of the reason why they came back. So, offensive line, Tate Ratledge, you don't see interior guys go in the first round as much, so I would consider him a second-round pick at the moment, but potential for him to go in the first round as well. Thanks for watching.